If you've fallen behind on your Bible reading plan this year, now is a great time to jump back in using Dwell. Dwell is a new audio Bible app that features 4 new unique voices and 44 listening plans. Download the app for a free 7-day trial. After that, Dwell is offering a special discount to Knowing Faith listeners. Visit dwellapp.io/knowingfaith for 33% off your annual subscription. That works out to just $19.99 for the entire year. Again, for 33% off of your annual Dwell subscription, visit dwellapp.io/knowingfaith. This is Kyle Worley, and I'm joined by my co-host, Jen Welkin.
Hey, guys.
And JT English.
Hey.
Hey, and we are back for Season 3 of Knowing Faith. I'm pumped. You guys pumped?
Glad to be here.
Yep.
We're back.
We're back.
This summer was too long. Here we are.
Here we are, and we are jumping in today, just kind of catching up a bit from summer, talking about Knowing Faith, why we started Knowing Faith, what we're doing on Knowing Faith, and where we're going in this season, the 3rd season of Knowing Faith. 3rd time's a charm, y'all.
3rd time.
3rd time. Here we go. Hope you enjoy the discussion. Okay, so I spent some time going back through yearbooks over the last couple of weeks.
My books?
No. Oh my gosh, yearbooks.
I was like, this is starting out really creepy.
Yes, Jen, I went back and reviewed all of your books, and
That's what it sounded like you said.
JT and I have a few things we'd like to talk with you about.
A few notes
Got
here.
some underlines. Let me get this up real quick.
Okay,
Page 89.
Yearbooks, yes. Yearbooks. I'm sorry, that's the Southeast Texan in me. Yearbooks. So I've been going back through some of my yearbooks, and it is bonkers, the stuff that's in those yearbooks. But the craziest thing that I totally forgot that Lauren and I have now been joking about is, do you guys remember when people would write stuff in your yearbooks?
Yes.
Okay, so do you guys remember Hags?
Hags?
What?
Hags? When somebody, yes, the producers are shaking their heads like, oh, yeah.
I don't know that
Hags.
I remember that.
Well, yeah, but you're like a senior saint. So your yearbooks were...
What year were you born?
That's not relevant.
Okay.
Hags. When people would write like Hags on the spine of your book or your yearbook or whatever, it's like, have a great summer.
Oh, yeah. Yes.
Yeah, people didn't do that in the 80s.
Oh, they didn't? Did you guys have yearbooks?
Oh, my gosh.
It's a legitimate question.
They were delivered by the Pony Express.
Yep. There we go. We're off to the races.
And we're back.
No, did you guys do you still have your yearbooks?
Mm-hmm.
I gave away a bunch. I was like,
who wants them?
I'm sorry, I didn't give them away. I got rid of them.
Okay.
I don't know why. I had like this simplifying stage of my life. Macy and I had just gotten married, and I was like, we're going to seminary. We're going to live in a box. We can't have all this stuff. So I only kept one.
I'm still thinking of like you giving away your yearbooks.
Yeah.
I forget what I did with them. I think I just threw them away.
Sure. Well, yeah.
But I kept my senior yearbook.
And
maybe one from like middle school.
Because who's the creepy person who shows up and is like, hey, you getting rid of these yearbooks?
Apparently you go through your books.
Well, I did.
Or mine. It's
No, or
not really
yours.
clear.
Yeah. If we were going to if we would have been voting, you know how I remember people got voted?
Yeah.
Okay. So if the Knowing Faith hosts were going to be voted, what would we have been voted as? Like, like most likely to whatever the most.
Wait, were you voted as something in your high school yearbook?
Yeah.
Were you, JT?
Mm-hmm.
Are we going to share?
Wait, were
No
you?
way.
Yes.
Oh my gosh. Okay. What were you voted? Tell me, JT.
I was dating somebody at the time.
Oh gosh.
And we were voted as most likely to be married at the reunion.
Oh,
And I have not
awkward.
spoken
So
with
you're
her
basically
in
not going to the reunion.
over a decade.
Okay.
Yeah, not going to the reunion. Nope.
Okay. Jen.
I was voted most likely to succeed.
Oh, not a surprise.
I
Not a
peaked in high
surprise.
school.
That's obviously not true. I was voted most likely, this is not a joke, most likely to become a pastor.
What?
Not a joke, which is
Kyle, that's really sweet.
They didn't
And
have
pretty
those
lame.
categories in Colorado.
Yeah.
Those are East
Yeah.
Texas.
Were you in
categories.
public school?
Mm-hmm. Yeah,
And
I
they
think,
had a category of most
That's what I'm
likely to
saying.
become a pastor.
That's what I'm
yeah,
saying.
I think they probably wrote it in for me.
Yeah.
I'm probably the only recipient.
Why is this guy reading Calvin during recess?
Lunchtime.
Yeah, it was, I will say for a cool factor, it wasn't like, it didn't help my points. but it turned out to be true.
All right.
Well, so we've talked about yearbooks, talked about summer plans. Did you guys do anything fun over the summer? Any fun things? Oh boy.
A few vacations.
Yeah.
Yeah. Vacations with friends, family.
Cool.
Pretty calm fun.
Did I take a trip? It's been a long
It's been a long time.
We're moving. We're moving. So that's been kind of fun, was to look for our next incarnation of ourselves now that the kids are gone. So yeah.
Okay. Well,
How about you, Kyle?
I honestly, the summer was a little weird. We had a few different hospital things that we had to deal with,
Yeah.
which were not super fun, like kidney stone stuff. Anyways, it was a mess. But we're on the other side of it.
Yeah,
this
you
is
are.
a summer that we're glad to have the
You got
book
through.
closed on.
Yeah.
Your color looks good.
Thank you.
Yeah.
Thank you. I appreciate that. I've been bronzing. That's a thing, right?
I don't know.
I've heard it said that people bronze.
Okay.
But not me.
You remember when you were in the training program teaching and you were giving an example and you were like, guys, you remember what I'm talking about?
I have no idea what you're talking about, and now I'm afraid. Oh, yes. I mentioned I didn't understand I didn't understand swiping left, right as part of date hookup culture.
But he was explaining it flawlessly to our class.
I had okay, here's the deal.
And he got to the point where he realized, I've explained this so well that they're going to think
there's
that
no
I'm
reason for them to
regular
think that I have not been. See, what I do is, and I get myself in these problems because I'll get interested in a topic and I'll read all of these articles about what's going on, and this or whatever. And then I start talking about it, and people are like, oh, you're in it.
But you had the moment before they did.
Oh, yeah.
You were
It
like,
occurred
wait,
to me.
guys, you need to know, I don't,
That's
guys.
That's happened more than once, unfortunately. Well, listen, we're glad that you're listening. If this is your first episode of Knowing Faith, welcome to season 3 of Knowing Faith. There are 2 other seasons that have come before it, and we are really glad to be in season 3. I miss doing this, guys.
I know. We've missed you.
We've taken some time off.
Yeah.
So
I'm really looking forward to today.
I know, me too. We get to hang out all day together, which is
Yeah.
fun. So season 3 of Knowing Faith, and if you are kind of new to Knowing Faith, it might be good for us to just, one, kind of introduce ourselves and what we do, right? So who we are, and then talk a little bit about why we do Knowing Faith. Why do we do it, and what are some of the things that we've covered in the past? So JT, who are you?
Yeah, so I've been at the Village now, it'll be 5 years, almost by the time this launches. I came in October 2014 and came to the Village to start the Village Church Institute. I'm just really passionate about discipleship in the context of the local church, whether that's helping increase Bible literacy or theological understanding, spiritual formation. I did not grow up in a Christian home, so when I got saved, I was looking for my church to disciple me. And though it was a great church, I never really had the opportunity to grow and learn. And so the thing that I wake up every single day thinking about is, how do we take just your average church member who is grinding it out at their job or in their responsibilities with their family and show them Christ and the scriptures, help them grow, learn, develop over a long period of life. And so the Institute really started with that vision of how do we equip the saints for the work of ministry here in the context of the local church. I'm married to Macy. She's been on an episode before, which was one of my favorite episodes.
We've had all of our spouses.
We've had all of our spouses, yep. And then Thomas and Bailey. My little's 4 and 2.
Okay, there we go.
Anything else?
No, I think that's good. Jen, introduce yourself.
Yeah.
I'm an Enneagram 1.
Perfect. Let's get it. We'll get all our numbers out there.
No, I'm
For
good.
all those for all those that are
We'll just
Enneagram
keep 'em
fans out
guessing.
there.
It's probably not that
Ennea
hard.
fans.
We all know Jen.
Yeah, don't tell. I'm Jen Welkin. I've been at the Village for, I guess 12 years now. I've been on staff with the Institute for 4.5. Is that right, JT?
That's about right.
Yeah, and my thing I love is Bible literacy in the local church specifically. I want to see firsthand knowledge of our text restored to the average person in the pews, and want to see the perceived expert-amateur divide that we have of the people on the platform being the experts and the people in the seats being the amateurs. I want to see that diminished as people grow to know and love and understand the Bible better.
Okay.
Married to Jeff.
Yeah.
And have 4 fantastic grown children.
Okay. There we go.
You have an awesome family.
I really like them.
You
They're
should.
great.
We like them too.
Yeah. Big fans. Big fans. Kyle Worley, I served on staff here at the Village for a number of years, served alongside Jen, served underneath JT in the Institute department, and then went and planted a church.
How's your church?
Yeah, you did.
Yeah, Mosaic Church.
You're, 13 months in? Or is that, it's not even 12 yet.
Not even 12. October will be our year anniversary
Wow.
of Hard Launch. And so it's been a really fun, wild ride. Cool to see God do some great things in our people and through our people, and we love it. It's been fantastic.
Kyle, I'm hijacking all of our plans for the show this season, but I want us to do a show where you talk about that, because I feel like you have done some things that other church planners may not have thought about doing. I think you've taken you and maybe we could get Adam Griffin to come on too, and you guys could talk a little about your roadmap, because I've been really encouraged to see how you guys have gone about that.
Thank you. It's been fun. And one of the funnest things, or most funnest things? Funnerest things has been just trying to think how to replicate adult education environments in a church plant, which oftentimes is like the one thing you throw overboard in a church plant.
Or it's like, we'll get to that eventually.
Right.
That's what I love, is that you guys hit the ground running with it. You were like, no, we're not going to try to introduce that down the road. And
it's been really fun.
Yeah, it's cool to see.
It's been really fun. And so I'm married to Lauren, and we have a little girl.
I watched your Instagram stories last night. You were dancing with Lydia.
We dance every night.
Dancing with your daughter is just like the sweetest thing.
It's the best.
You guys were doing like nice dancing. Bailey and I, we jam.
Yeah, of course. Yeah, no, I see that in you. I get that.
Wait, so is there a competitive element to it at your house, JT?
No, she just is she wants to rock. It's not competitive. She just is I'll put on something slow, and she's like, what is this? And you put on something with some
she's
bass.
A bruiser.
And
she's
like, let's
go. I love that. Well, so that's who we are. Why do we do Knowing Faith? Why is this a thing?
So I want to talk about this because you can't talk about it. Jen can talk about it with me. I mean, you came to us. It's been 2.5 years now, and said we should start a podcast. And both Jen and I were like, no way. Yeah. Absolutely not.
It was a definitive no.
Yeah, right.
I put every bit of social capital.
You did. We even talked about it then.
Yep, we did.
That's actually also what I said to JT the first time he said I should work for him.
I remember that too. Yeah. So we've both been told no. We persist. But you came to us to talk about wanting to do this podcast. We're still in the middle of trying to develop and build a department that required a lot of blood, sweat, and tears. And it was something we were passionate about. And I think our concern was, is this going to get in the way of the main mission? Is this going to be mission drift for what we're trying to do? But then we said, I forget how you did it, but you convinced us, just do a couple pilot episodes.
Well, you said we're going to build it off of what we're already doing. We're not going to have to come up with all new things to talk about. And he said, I really just think people would benefit from hearing what goes on just when we're having normal conversations. And I was like, this is classic me. I'm like, this is dumb.
Nobody's going to listen.
Nobody's going to want to listen. Everybody's starting a blog. It's what all the cool kids are doing. I mean, everybody's starting a podcast. What all the cool kids are doing. And then it just ended up being so fun that we didn't really care if anybody was listening.
It's true, right?
We didn't really care.
But then the fruitfulness of it, I mean, I got an Instagram post a couple of days ago from somebody in Chile, or somebody else said, I'd given up on reading scripture.
Yeah.
And you guys are helping me fall in love with the Bible again. Yeah. And you're like, okay, that makes the whole season worth it.
Yeah.
It's been an absolute joy, an absolute blast. And I think, for me, the kind of inception point of the idea was just that when I jumped onto this team, it was the first experience I had of really doing regular kind of meaningful theological and biblical engagement with brother and sister peers. And I think that is a huge part of this, is that we've kind of had this blessing and this opportunity, this journey over the last couple of years to learn how to do that together. And we just found, at least I found, that it was richer because of that.
Oh, yeah, for sure.
For sure.
And so I think that one of the things that's just been so fun, I mean, selfishly, is that this is just a scheduled opportunity for us to do this, and to do what we are already doing. When people reach out and be like, "Man, I love the banter," I'm like, "You should see our text message chat,
right?"
or not,
or not. Yeah, those are the things that we should not disclose, probably. But drifting from the absurd to the theological to the serious to the cultural, and it's been really fun to get to kind of pull back the curtain for Knowing Faith. And
Knowing Faith is really like a TVCI staff meeting.
Yeah.
This is what we're doing all the time.
Kyle, when you posted that Three Amigos online, and I was like, Kyle, I don't know if the world's ready to know that the Three Amigos is a thing for us. It was hilarious.
It was, and the reactions. I think people were surprised. People were surprised at our own self-conception of who we are.
They wanted to know which one I was.
Yeah.
And I'm like, I mean, Steve Martin, right?
Of course, right? Yeah, I mean, funny man, Steve Martin. And we've covered a lot of stuff on Knowing Faith, so it's been fun to actually like get to do the work and have the fun. But I actually think too. And this is not to like boast. I think we've actually covered some really important topics.
Yeah, I think so too.
And we've had on some great guests. And we've been able to cover now. Oh my goodness, we've hit Matthew. We've gone through 1st and 2nd Samuel.
Yeah.
We made it through.
Made it through.
We did it.
And now we're headed towards Acts. And we've done some really important topics, kind of more in the systematic, biblical, and historical theology landscape.
Yeah, almost every, at least major topic of systematic theology has been covered in some way, shape, or form.
Yeah, and this season, we're headed towards covering the Apostles' Creed and Acts.
Yeah, I'm really
I'm
very, very excited about this
Me
season
too.
and the content.
Me too. Yeah, I think that it's going to be, and the kind of if you're new to Knowing Faith, our rhythm is that we'll do an episode that is kind of tracking along with the book of the Bible, and then we'll go towards an episode that is tracking along with some sort of like theological lattice or structure. So we're kind of following something. In the past, we've used a training program curriculum. Training program is one of the things that JT built here, which is a 1-year-long theological immersion program that's kind of a capstone, so to speak, of the Institute department. And we've used that as kind of our grid. But this year we're using the Apostles' Creed instead, which will be really fun.
It's better than the training program.
It is.
So we're going to go with that.
It is.
It's been around a little longer.
It has been around.
Staying power.
So I think one of the things that has been really fun is just listening to what listeners say about Knowing Faith. So what are some of the things that you hear from folks about Knowing Faith? Go ahead and jump in.
Well, it's been really fun. Like when I travel around to do speaking things, now anytime I'm talking to people after an event, they are like, tell JT and Kyle hi, and I'm like, okay, I will. And it's just been really fun. Like you guys have talked about how people will talk to you about me being a part of the show, and I get to hear about these women who may not have ever paid attention to anything you guys were saying, and they've been introduced to your voices, and that's been really fun because you're talking about things that are obviously for men and women, but to hear women say, "Oh my gosh!" and I read that, I read Delighting in the Trinity, and it changed the way that I thought about the Trinity, and then I thought, "Oh my gosh, what else don't I know?" And so that's all fun, and I get tons of private messages on Instagram, which I'll just tell you guys straight up, I pretend like I don't read them because I can't respond to all of them, but I do go out there and peek around, and then I'll send them to Kyle and JT and say, look how encouraging this is, that people's framework for how they're understanding the scriptures and theology, it's being changed by these conversations.
Yeah, that's good.
Yeah, I get some of that stuff too. One of the pieces of feedback that I get regularly is that people don't feel like they have spaces to have these kinds of conversations, whether that's in their local church or in their group of friends. And so there's a lot of people who are really interested in this type of stuff. I think that was my concern, is anybody going to care about this? But what we found is there are a bunch of people who care and are simply looking for conversation partners and dialogue partners. And sometimes this sounds creepy, but I'm also super encouraged about it. Like people feel like they're in the room with us. They're like, I feel like I'm having a conversation and a dialogue with friends. Yep. And that's the best way for theology to be done, is in the context of community, in the context of hearing multiple voices pursue truth together. So the fact that we're trying to provide an environment where people feel invited in, not just talked to, but talked with, has been something that I hear regularly.
Yeah, my two favorite pieces of feedback are, one, I love that you guys love one another and still disagree with each other.
Yes,
because
we do that well.
We do that. Yeah, that is a well-traveled path in our relationship.
We know how to do that.
And so, probably the most amount of energy I saw off of any of our episodes last season is whenever JT and I disagreed about the canon.
Gosh.
We are spending a lot of time talking about that in this season. I need you to know.
Well,
I'm prepared.
Yeah, I bet you are. Okay. The whole history of the church stands against you.
That's not true.
Okay, guys, we don't have time today.
It's true. There's truth there. So that's one that I love. And I think it's winsome for people because the only most disagreement we see publicly now in published form is not charitable and nobody hugs afterwards.
What are you talking about?
Right, of course.
Is it like a rage culture out there?
There is.
People mad at each other?
Just a little bit. Just say anything on the internet. And then...
no, I'm good.
Right, yeah, you are. And the second thing is that I love hearing people... one of my favorite pieces of feedback is, do you guys just act like you're learning from one another?
Oh, yeah.
Nope.
No.
The amount of scripting that goes into these
is exactly zero.
Yeah. So people would be like, "Oh, it's really cool how those moments you act like you didn't know." It's like, no, I did not
real.
know.
Yeah, that's real.
Yeah. So whenever like somebody came to me, we're like, "You didn't know that the king was anointed 3 times? You thought it was fine?" I was like, "Yeah," and they were like, "Well, why are you doing this podcast?" I was like, "Because I'm trying to learn about 1st and 2nd Samuel. I'm sorry, I don't know. Okay, I didn't know how many times until that moment. I didn't know."
Well, and anytime, here's a little code word. If you hear me go, let me just play devil's advocate for a minute, it usually means I want to ask questions I actually need to know the answer to, but I'm pretending like I do know the answer in advance.
This episode of Knowing Faith is sponsored by Southern Seminary. Southern Seminary exists to provide deep, rich, and strong ministry preparation that endures. JT, you went to Southern Seminary.
I did. Had a fantastic experience. When I think about Southern, I think about a few things. First, I think about the faculty. If you want to go to a place that the faculty are writing the books, this is where you go. They're writing the books that every other seminary uses. The second thing I think about is their graduates. The men and women that are coming out of Southern Seminary are trusted. They're giving truth to the church and to the academy. Southern, it's hard to miss.
Yeah, it really is.
You can learn more about Southern Seminary at sbts.edu. And you can also apply today with the waiver code Knowing Faith, that's one word, and they'll waive your $35 application fee.
I wonder what I would do with that $35. Maybe I would use it and go buy all of Jen's books.
Okay.
There we go. You might find it helpful to listen to Knowing Faith if you are, let's just kind of popcorn this. If you're somebody who is, man, I'm interested in things about the Bible or things about Christian belief, but I'm having a hard time starting. I don't really know where to go to learn. Then you might find Knowing Faith helpful. If you might find it helpful if you feel like, man, I feel like I've got a lot of like bits and pieces of Christian truth things. Like I know that somehow the Bible is authoritative, and I know that Jesus is the Son of God, but I'm having a hard time kind of putting those things together. That's one of the things that we aim to do with Knowing Faith. What are some other reasons why you might just find it helpful?
I read someone's tweet on the terrible internets about how she overheard a conversation in an airport. And this woman said, "Oh man, I love the Bible so much," and then proceeded to say something that had no relation to what the Bible teaches. And it was Sharon Miller is who tweeted this. I thought it was really insightful. She said, "I think that a lot of people are dealing with these kind of contradictions, and that some of them are not even aware of it. But some of us do have a low-level sense of, I don't even know if these things fit together." And there's a reason that we called the podcast Knowing Faith. We believe that there are cohesive ways to think about our faith that help us to increase our faith.
Yeah.
And many of us just haven't ever had exposure to the categories or had given ourselves space to even contemplate them. So I think if you're someone who finds yourself thinking, I think I believe that, or I've always been told that, but I'm not sure the origin of that, or someone just challenged that online, and now I'm wondering if the whole world is off kilter. That's a big thing that I hope we can do in incremental ways on the podcast is every one of us will have that moment where we encounter the soul-sucking question that we think has possibly never been answered before by any other human being with regard to our faith. And in that moment, you kind of lock up and think, maybe everything I've ever believed is fake or wrong. And I hope what we're doing on this show is giving people, I guess, grappling hooks, so to speak, to hang on to the bedrock of their faith.
Yeah. Yeah.
That these questions are not new.
Yeah,
that's
absolutely.
That's
right. Yeah.
And really nothing we're doing on the show is novel.
Yeah. At all.
No, yeah.
I hope not.
If we are, we should probably think about stopping.
Yep. That's good.
Yeah, I'm not sure the right way to say this, but I think you'd want to listen to this if you're wanting to be involved in conversations like this.
Yeah.
We wish we could invite all of you into the studio so you could have a conversation with us because, again,
most of you.
Most people, the fourth amigo. But we really think that the best learning happens when you're in conversation with other people. That every time that I've read a book or listened to a sermon or a podcast or a lecture, whatever it was, the real learning happened when I was able to go have a conversation with you guys next door and say, hey, here's what I'm thinking. Just yesterday, I'm preaching this weekend here at our church, and Jen and I spent 30 minutes talking about the text and kind of walking through it together, which means...
And disagreeing.
Yeah, disagreeing, because that's important and valuable. And so if you're looking for an environment like this, we're hoping to kind of show you what it could look like. Maybe your community is going to look a little bit different. Your conversation partners are different. But this is like doing theology in community is messy like this.
Yeah.
And it isn't a lecture. It's not. It's what Jen said earlier. It's removing the amateur expert divide that we are all trying to open the scriptures together because we believe that in it, the faith that's been once delivered to the saints is contained. And we believe that it's worth knowing, and it's worth knowing with friends, and that it's worth knowing with people that agree with you and disagree with you so that we can know truth. And so I would encourage you, if you're somebody who's listening to this and you want community like this, think about starting a community like this.
Yeah, it would be so cool to see conversation partners develop out of this podcast. And even like now, can I say that there's show notes now?
I think that there are. Yes.
Yeah.
Yes.
They are being developed.
They are being developed.
Like they'll be out there before long.
Yes.
And you could...
They'll probably be there on this episode.
Yeah, by the time this episode comes out.
Yeah, I've quoted Hebrews 11:1 on this. Faith is the assurance of things hoped for, the conviction of things
not
unseen.
seen. Let's just speak that word into the universe. But one, you could take a previous season of Knowing Faith, get together with two friends, take the show notes, do some reading together, have some conversations. That would be fantastic.
And don't think about us as being
authoritative
the teachers.
Yeah.
Think of us as being
partners.
conversation partners.
Absolutely. Absolutely.
I think that's
and
really
I think some of it too is like we think when we have those conversations that we have to be able to put a neat bow on the conversation at the end of it, and that's not the case. Like you could get together with a group to talk about what you're reading and walk away going, I don't know.
Yeah.
And that is a great discussion.
It is.
And that's actually one of the reasons I'm so excited about our structure for season 3 with Acts and the Apostles' Creed is because of what you just said right there. I think one of the things that actually allows for greater and greater theological charity is returning back to the basics of what Christian faith looked like, right? Kind of its early formulations. And it gives us a willingness and an ability to go, you know what, here's some bedrock things that we're saying, that Jesus Christ has ascended, the Spirit has been sent, the church has been birthed. And then from that, eventually you get this formulation of the Apostles' Creed that is establishing kind of a bedrock. And that bedrock is really, it's very certain about very certain things, and it is very open and other things. And so you and your friend can get together and listen to a baptism episode, walk away disagreeing about baptism, like Lig Duncan and I have done now, even though he is the smartest man I have ever been in the room with. I was intimidated for every second of that. And kindness.
He beat us on smartness and kindness.
I know,
so,
yeah.
Most likely to succeed.
Yes,
Hashtag Presbyterian.
And most well-dressed. He was...
Most well-dressed.
Oh, man.
Yeah. And so, but I love that because I think that going into Acts and Apostles' Creed, it kind of takes us back not to, there's sometimes this idyllic approach when we look back at Acts and the Apostles' Creed, right? Which it just doesn't hold water when you look at anything around what was happening around the Apostles' Creed or what's actually happening in the book of Acts. But I love that we're returning to that for our structure. So Jen, could you share a little bit about as to why we're headed towards Acts?
We're going to be going through Acts, the men's and women's Bible studies at the Village. We'll be going through Acts this fall and spring, so we'll be doing it in 2 parts. And eventually that resource is going to be available online and won't be available week to week. But it'll all be available all kind of in one big block. But we wanted to do the book of Acts because we wanted to pay attention to, we had just done Matthew a couple years ago, so I shouldn't say just done, but it feels still fresh in my head. And then having done 1st and 2nd Samuel, it's really nice to pick up with the book of Acts, which is going to develop, hey, what happened after the earthly ministry of the Son of David.
Yeah.
Like, what did that look like, and what should we take as normative? What should we take as this is something unique happening at a unique time? These are questions that people deal with quietly or that they overlook, and so we want to deal with them forthrightly. And just putting together that study has been. Every time we put together a study, I think, I thought I knew the book of Acts. Whatever the book is, it's like, oh, I thought I knew this. And then you're like, man, there is so much more here. Seeing, in particular, the messages that Peter gives or that Paul gives, the 7 messages of Peter, the 7 messages of Paul. And, of course, Stephen's speech that he gives. And so looking to their example and asking, what do I take from this?
Yeah.
What is not as helpful for me to take from this? Because there's so much conversation about what Acts is or isn't out there. And so our hope is always to just give a book of the Bible to our people.
Yeah.
So that at the end of spending 22 weeks in it or whatever the time is that we've allotted, whether they have been able to draw neat and clean application points from every single increment of the text, they will always know, oh, that's in Acts chapter 6, or oh, that's in Acts chapter 12. And those sound like small wins, but they're cumulative wins that over a lifetime or even over 5 or 10 years start to make a huge difference in how you hear sermons that are preached and how you read commentaries. So that's what we're looking for. We're running a marathon, not a sprint in the Bible studies. And so you'll hear some of that come up in the conversation that we're having here. Just as reflections. You kind of get, I would say on the podcast, you get sort of things that cooked a little longer after the teaching. Things that I wish I'd gotten to talk about during the teaching, or things that hit me, a day later that I'm like, shoot, I wish I'd had that on Tuesday.
Yeah. And some really fun, interesting, weird stuff.
Yeah.
Like that we got to explore in First Samuel.
You love to dig out all the stuff.
I
that
do.
It's like,
I can't wait to talk about Acts 1 and the casting of lots.
Oh, yeah.
Because you're just like, it's like Jesus
Why is that happening?
Powerful moment. There's a super powerful moment. They're like, hey, guys.
Let's roll some dice.
Let's roll some dice. And you're like, wait a minute. Am I in Casino with Robert De Niro right
But
now?
I actually love that. That's what I love, because that's what we try to do in the Bible study, too, is we try to ask the question that people think they're not allowed to ask.
Right.
Like people are like, oh, I guess that's just a thing, and I'll just keep moving. It's
Right,
like,
exactly.
no. Feel the weirdness. Let's talk about
strange.
it. Yeah, I love that.
Okay, so we're doing Acts, which will be really fun. I'm very excited about doing Acts. And then we're also going to be hitting Apostles' Creed.
Yeah.
Why did we? And we'll spend more time in this in detail in the next episode. But why Apostles' Creed?
Yeah, I mean, so I think kind of our tradition. So we're evangelical, Protestants, fairly Reformed, Baptists, and so like we love our Bibles. Like we love our Bible.
Yep.
Like I literally wrote my dissertation on why the Bible's authority. Like we love our Bibles, and rightfully so, because this is where God meets us in its text. It's the inspired word of God. It's inerrant, infallible, sufficient, clear. It's necessary.
Yep.
But sometimes that has meant that we've neglected the faith that's been passed down to us through the church, which could be known as like creeds, councils, confessions.
Jinx.
Booyah. And that's what this is. So the Apostles' Creed is probably the most well-known creed in the history of the Christian church. It's been confessed in every country, across virtually every period of time by all Christians. And so when we say, like, let's distill down what the faith is, it's the creed. But sometimes evangelicals were like, no creed but the Bible. I want my Bible. And I'm like, okay, do you know that's a creed? And so we're trying to, I think, explore for people how our faith and how Bible literacy can be expanded through a knowledge of church history and through the confessions and creeds that have been handed down to us. And so the Apostles' Creed, you could do Nicaea, Chalcedon.
And maybe we will.
Maybe we will. I'd like to, but at least this one, the Apostles' Creed, I would say is kind of the most distilled version of the story of what God is doing in the world through Christ.
I love it. It's going to be fun. It really is going to be fun. Well, so one of the things that we threw out, just to kind of start landing the plane, over the summer was we threw out a hashtag contest, or a subtitle, or tagline contest, excuse me.
And by we mean Kyle.
Yeah, I mean, because why not? I mean,
so I get out there one night, I'm like, why do I have so many mentions on Twitter?
Well, I mean, hey, you can thank me for dragging that
Kyle's
mention.
out there stirring the old pot.
I am. So here's a few of my favorite ones that get thrown out, okay? This one's from Jake Kelly. Knowing faith. Jesus isn't calling. He already called. That's a good quote.
I thought we
High
cut
five,
that.
Jake.
We didn't cut that. We cut some stuff after it. But we got one from Angela Lamb, Knowing Faith. Now say it in English.
Yes.
Which I said was the perfect title for JT's future memoirs. Right? I mean, now say it in English, the JT story.
I think I'm just going to call it plain English.
Oh, that's a good one, too.
Okay.
Oh, Lord, that there would be such thing as plain English.
That's true.
Jen, I was just wondering. So Jen,
Don't.
I'm doing it. I'm going in. There's one of my favorite quotes from The West Wing. That's something else I've loved about this. Is people will respond to us and say,
I know, we need to start getting residuals from the West
Yeah.
Wing.
They're
at
like,
this
we
point, I
love,
think.
we love the theology talk, but I finally watched The West Wing, and that's made Knowing Faith worth it.
Sure. Golly.
Yeah, but there's a part in The West Wing where they're criticizing President Bartlett for being the education president and being and actually having an education. And so whenever Jen trolls me for having an education, it's like, Jen, we're the education department. Maybe it's okay for us to pretend like we have an education.
I like that you think it's me trolling you. That's really rich.
It is.
Yeah, it is. It is. It's a pot kettle situation for sure. We have Nate Nordberg, Knowing Faith, come for the show, stay for the banter.
Wow, thanks, Nate.
Thank
I
you,
feel
Nate.
seen.
I know,
I feel
man.
loved.
Just feel love. Thank you, Nate.
Okay, that whole banter. Can we talk about the survey you did? The totally ridiculous.
Sure. I mean, I've never known anybody who wanted to talk about their own defeat.
It was. Hang on. I think it's probably unfair to call it a
Fake
defeat. We could call it
news.
an absolute destruction. I mean, it was a colossal defeat.
I have been wrongly portrayed as a banter hater. I do not hate the banter. I just hate lack of self-control.
And you do have a committed base of followers.
You do know that self-control is a fruit
7
of the spirit, right?
Yes, I've been
Okay.
told this by a great study through the Gospel of Matthew.
Kyle and I, we're just here to give the people what they want.
That's true.
And they want the banter.
That's
so
true.
the banter stays.
We have to come up with some reason to malign you, Jen, because you make us look so bad
About
every single episode.
Maybe I should have been voted most likely to be trolled.
Well,
I wish
that's true.
Sometimes
At
I
least
wish
for
we
this.
video recorded this. Could see us just taking notes on the other side of Jen. It's like,
true.
That's good. I'm putting that in my sermon this
people,
week.
people are. Somebody said, "Man, it's so cool how when you guys listen to other, you're like, oh, that's really good." I'm like, yeah.
No, that's because I'm going to use it somewhere
using
later
it.
that day.
Yeah, and I'm not crediting
Well,
that person.
that's what has been really, really fun because JT and I have had a running joke about how in the early years he would take my lines and just kind of wing them out there. And now I totally sneak his stuff into what
Yeah,
I'm
now
saying.
it's the reverse.
So anytime someone tweets out something I said that was a ripoff of JT, I screenshot it and send it to him. And I'm like, didn't even credit you.
That's awesome. I love that.
How you like me now?
I deserve that. I
Well-
resemble that comment.
Well, listen, if there is, we're excited about season 3. I am. I'm pumped about it. I'm pumped to be back in the studio. We'll be releasing weekly episodes. We hope that you'll be listening in for those. If there's anything, when we're going through these episodes, if there's something you're like, I'm interested in more on that topic, then you might go to tvcresources.net and check out the resources there. I would also encourage you to just kind of thumb through the rest of the Knowing Faith episodes. Sometimes we'll make it a point to say, hey, we've covered this topic before, or we've looked at this topic. JT's over here just ripping paper up. I don't know if you guys can hear that in the background. He can't speak directly into the mic, but he can rip this paper out.
Right over the microphone.
He's like, oh, let me get this paper as
Yeah.
close to the mic as
Hey,
possible.
you dropping stuff?
Okay, whatever. On our next episode, we're going to be looking at the Apostles' Creed, and we're going to ask this question. What is belief? Like when we say we believe in something, what does it actually mean to believe in something? All right? See you next time. Grace and peace.